I don't know if either of us expected this, but Vikings Cardinals playoff positioning on the line. Let's get into it on Crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Crossover. I'm Luke Braun. I do Locked On Vikings. So hello to Cardinals fans and hello to my everydayers. And to Cardinals everydayers, hello. You know Alex Clancy at Clancy's Corner. He does the Locked On Cardinals podcast previewing Vikings versus Cardinals at US Bank Stadium on Sunday. Not flexed. It was a sweat there for a second. Almost got flexed, but did not get flexed. And Alex, you cover the Cardinals. They have been something of a week-to-week proposition. So I want to ask you about that. Of course, there are all kinds of storylines going on about the Vikings. I'm sure you and your listeners want to know about that stuff, and we'll get into some of the keys of the game as well today. This one is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL. You can get $50 instantly when you play $5. Alex, which Cardinals are we going to see? Am I right about that? I mean, it feels like they've had, games like last week where they just lay an egg against the Seahawks, and then games where they just like dust somebody by 40. Like, it feels like I have absolutely no handle on the Cardinals at all.
Same.
Oh no.
End of episode. Rock on. Yeah. It's
like, what's the is it just that we don't know who's going to show up, or is it just that they have problems that sometimes they punish him, sometimes they don't? Like, what's the deal?
I'm going to take the former part of that sentence first. The Seattle game wasn't as ugly as it looked. The defense looked fantastic. The offense ran into an absolute buzzsaw where Leonard Williams decided to be last year in college. Leonard Williams just dominating kids going to French class on Monday. Like, it was something that I wasn't expecting.
Let's go.
Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon are a top 5 corner duo in the NFL, and they all just seem to wake up after that come-from-behind win at Levi Stadium 2 weeks ago against the 49ers. And the Cardinals offensive line had the worst output they had all year by a long shot. So you very well know, football fans very well know, if the offensive line isn't doing its job, you're not going to win very many games. And the Cardinals showed that this past Sunday. Now, like, everything's trending in the right direction. I think that's the overall motif of this season. It's happening 12 months sooner than people expected, including me. But when things are moving on offense, they're a top 5 offense. This defense, top 15 defense throughout the year with a lack of pass rush for the majority of the season until exotic blitzes and blitz packages really have become all the craze over the last couple of weeks, and the Cardinals have been eating on defense. But to answer your question, I don't know what the hell is going to happen. There's no rhyme or reason as to what side you see, produce more than the other. And it's been the offense, but the defense has been no slouch this year.
So tell me more about that defense, because we're familiar enough at this point with Kyler Murray. Everybody's played Kyler Murray a couple times in the NFC now, so we're familiar enough. He's mobile. He can get out there. He can kill you with his legs. You got to contain. You got to play that. He can hit those deep bombs. Now he's got Marvin Harrison catching them, right? So like, that dynamic part of the offense is probably the scariest thing you're finding on defense. And then the other side of the ball is going to be like kind of what's interesting. So my question is always, I guess I always have 2 questions on these crossovers. One is, how do you handle a true number 1 receiver? We'll talk more about Justin Jefferson in the next segment, but how do you handle that true kind of, here is like the threat guy? A lot of teams have different answers. Some of them want to double up. Some of them want to do brackets and zones and try to play the quarterback. Some of them just go like full heavy blitz and try to make it so you can't throw to anybody. Like, what's the Cardinals' main plan against a number 1 true blue, like, stud wide receiver?
Yeah, I think the bracketed coverage, the eye in the sky is going to be Dadrion Taylor-Demerson from the strong safety position, rookie out of Texas Tech, 4th round pick, has really wowed right away. Like, the dude likes to hit people.
Interesting.
That's one thing you'll see from this Cardinals defense. Everybody likes to hit people. Like, this isn't a Patrick Peterson kind of mosey people out of bounds. Hopefully the ball doesn't get thrown your way kind of defense from a CB1. You
squeeze the sideline. It's an old school way to do it. It's very Pete Carroll.
Yeah. And Garrett Williams is bona fide CB1. I'm assuming he's going to be blanketing Justin Jefferson in some capacity. third round pick out of Syracuse, would have been a first round pick if we didn't tear his ACL around Christmas time his last year at Syracuse. Max Melton, who the Cardinals traded back for in the second round, watching Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Kamari Lassiter all go, knowing that the kid from Rutgers was who they wanted to take. Because why? He likes to hit people. And this secondary has been
it's physical.
This has been the most physical secondary specifically that I've ever seen since covering the Cardinals moving here in 2011. So that's going to be it. It's going to be by committee with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Like, I have full and complete trust that Budda Baker, the two young corners, and the rookie safety alongside him have it covered. And it's the craziest thing to see. They've really come into
that is wild coming from you. Because I'm like, okay, longtime listeners of these know, but you and I have done a bunch of Locked On NFLs, and I've listened to plenty of Locked On Cardinals as well. But like you will go at it if like you're the least homerish guy on this network. So that's wild to hear that much faith in a very young secondary. But if that's the physicality, that could be really important against the way the Vikings play. But I had one other question I wanted to get to. What is the Cardinals' plan for a blitz on the other side of the ball? Because obviously Brian Flores, very aggressive. And depending on what kind of things the Cardinals like to do against a blitz, that'll sort of determine what sort of plan you're going to get. Because there have been games where Flores doesn't blitz at all, but he just fakes a whole bunch of blitzes and forces you into your, wimpy little checkdowns, and you get, 2 yards a pop and punt.
Right.
Or is there something else the Cardinals like to do? Like, what's their main response to pressure?
Run the ball. Like, if
just run right into it.
Like, if they're able to establish the run like they have for the majority of the season, blitzing is kind of rendered obsolete. Like, if they can hit the A gap with James Conner, with Yalta Frold at center, and Evan Brown on the left side, that's the sweet spot. If James Conner can bounce outside, that's a sweet spot. Now, say, it's a passing down, or they, get a penalty on first down and they're, behind the sticks. It's Trey McBride. This is what's been unlocked. It's 3 yards, turn around, catch the ball, be in space. It's get rid of the ball before pressure gets to you. And it's not as much as Kyler Murray doing the Tony Romo spin out and throwing off his back foot to a receiver streaking down the sideline. Like, it's been
that's what I'm familiar with from him. Yeah, like, that's his game. So he's god awful. So it's a more mature game then. It's a little bit more like relaxed.
It's a big boy.
Just dump the ball off, be done.
It's a big boy offense. It's run the ball. It's play action. It's hit your tight end. It's hit your wide receiver one. And then Kyler Murray needs to be special 2 or 3 times a game to keep opposing defenses guessing. This isn't a Texas Tech offense anymore. So he doesn't have to save the offense. Plus, the offensive line is the best he's had probably in his entire career, which will yield some more pass protection than he'd had against the blitz in the past. And they run more 13 personnel than any team in the NFL. They've dot blocking tight ends that can chip if necessary. And it's something that they've been able to do very effectively, save last week.
So the Vikings run defense has been genuinely tops in the league all year. Like, pretty hard to argue anybody else is better at run defense. Maybe like the Broncos. But they've been absolutely cooking people up front. Their interior D-line against the run has been incredible. But they just put a very important piece of that, Ivan Pace, on IR. And now they got Jamin Davis coming off the couch, who might have to come step in and help out, or they've got all these other wild things. So maybe that run game will be one of the keys to the game. And we will get to those keys to the game a little later. But first, Alex, I'm sure you have a whole bunch of stuff about the Vikings that you want to know about. So we're going to get into that next. Today's Locked On crossover episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. At FanDuel right now, if you're new, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win any $5 bet. So if you're watching the Black Friday game, the Thanksgiving games might be going on, might be listening to this while you cook or something, you want to get a little bit of action going on, drop $5 on whatever it is you want, no matter how short the odds, you'll get $150. That's 30-1 in bonus bets, assuming that bet wins. And FanDuel gives you all the tools you need to live bet. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out all the latest stats, live play-by-play, and pick your moment absolutely the way that you want to. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You can get started once again with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Once again, thank you to the Cardinals and Vikings everydayers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I always super encourage my listeners to go listen to Alex for these last couple of shows of the week. And I welcome all Cardinals fans. You can always come listen up to Locked On Vikings, do a little Oppo research. But Alex, how are you feeling about this game? What do you want to know?
I mean, on paper, it's a scary offense. TJ Hockenson obviously has not missed a step since coming back. My biggest question is, why has Sam Darnold not pumpkined yet? And let me preface that, all joking aside, this is probably obviously the best roster he's ever quarterbacked, and you mean save what he did in San Francisco. Why has he not spoiled yet? Like, what are the things that he's done that he's improved upon from his last stops?
In a word, it's coaching. I think you give a ton of credit to not only Kevin O'Connell, Josh McCown, the quarterbacks coach, assistant quarterbacks coach, Grant Udinsky, who's sort of this like rising star in that staff that I think is a name you're going to start hearing a little more about in the next half a decade or so. But the answer is, like, they've done a really good job of reining him in. I think it's a really good fit. Sam Darnold is very aggressive. And, why did Sam Darnold bust out in New York? Like, what's the answer? It's interceptions, right? Yeah, turnovers. Sure. He threw too many turnovers, and that was unacceptable, right? That's still in him. And what I say for every single one of these crossovers, you can set your watch by a turnover or two. Earlier in the year, it was 2 or 3. They're maybe getting a handle on it. They've been a little bit cleaner the last couple games, but or at least a turnover opportunity. Like, you're going to get 3 turnover opportunities. You just will. Congratulations, you're going to be able to get the ball if you're opportunistic. And the opportunistic defenses, can then kind of change the game on that. But Darnold has been fantastic for the other 27 of 30 reps of 30 dropbacks, right? Like, he's been, the talent that got him drafted 3rd overall has never been in question, right? He's accurate. He can hit every level of the field, make you defend every blade of grass. That's never been an issue. It's just being safe with the football, and sometimes he gets a little bit overly aggressive. But you know who else is overly aggressive? Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, and this entire team loves being overly aggressive. So when he makes a really aggressive decision and it doesn't work out, he goes to the sideline and they go, actually, I kind of agreed with that one. You're all right. Run it back. And they're just going to keep hunting shot plays and explosives over and over and over again. And when you've got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hockenson, those guys are going to come down with some. And before you know it, you're looking at 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. That has been the reason he hasn't pumpkin. He kind of has. It's just that they've overcome it because of all the explosiveness. But he's had games where he's had 207, 3. He's had 3 turnover games that the Vikings just won anyways. Like, this happens, and it's going to happen again and keep happening. But they've just managed to find enough explosiveness to overcome it. So whatever the other shoe is, it did drop, and it just is still working.
Bare feet allowed, I think, is where we are then, if both shoes did drop. Now, I'm going to ask you this, because this is something I've experienced here with Arizona since James Conner came over here a handful of years ago. Is Aaron Jones the most important skill position player on offense for this team?
No, it's Justin Jefferson. He is probably more important.
A run game. If the Cardinals stop the run game, and they have, but I've seen Aaron Jones this year be special, and
he'll get 13 carries though. They don't like to run. I mean, there are stretches, and this is a critique I have of O'Connell. They'll just forget to run sometimes. They'll just rip off 10 passes in a row, and it'll be 7-on-7 football. It'll be like the Pac-12. Dude, you have a really good running back. So Aaron Jones has been fantastic, but make no mistake, this is a passing offense. If you shut down the pass and make them a one-dimensional run team, you got a stew cooking. Nobody's been able to do that yet, because Kevin O'Connell will refuse it. I mean, he will just keep passing anyways, no matter how good things are going for you guys in that secondary. So while the run game has been very good, and by the way, O-line's really banged up, they probably won't have, Christian Darrisaw's on IR. They probably won't have Cam Robinson, who they traded to replace him. He hurt his foot. So they got David Quessenberry out there at left tackle. They're messing around at right guard. They got Dalton Reisner starting in there right now over Ed Ingram, which they're experimenting with. So the line's in a weird spot, and I don't know how good the run game's going to be. But they just, or they'll just throw 16 post routes to Jordan Addison and then hope they hit one. That's just going to be how they're insane.
Yeah. Now, before we get to the defense, because I'm curious to hear about Dallas Turner, do a check-in on Byron Murphy Jr., former Arizona Cardinal.
We love him.
They've been winning without Justin Jefferson scoring touchdowns the last 5 weeks. They've been winning with Jordan Addison really ever since the let three
Mhm.
fly on Instagram, I think things have changed
Yeah.
a little bit. He's kind of flexed his Bolitnikoff award,
Uh-huh.
arms the last couple
So
weeks.
I should mention the three thing has been his motto since college.
Okay.
So that wasn't like a wide receiver post. He has chains that say that. Like that's his thing. But yeah.
All right. Anyways, I mean, I would want to get out of Pittsburgh too. Is that where he was first? Before he
Pittsburgh
went
and
to
then USC and then
Yeah. Now, because Justin Jefferson has been the mainstay, he's shattered all the the records as a young receiver. He makes it look easy. Him and Jamar Chase are 1-1A in my opinion. Choose who you want in the game. How do they is a slump thing real, and how are they winning without his production?
So no, the slump thing is not real. He had a 27-yard game and also produced 45 yards worth of DPI. Add that together, it's a 72-yard game. Nobody be talking about it. Okay. So a lot of the games where you see a low box score, you'll see the other team has like a jillion penalties. So here's the way that teams can defend Justin Jefferson. They can basically commit their entire defense to stopping him, right? You'll find triple coverage situations a lot if you look at that Bears tape. And what that means is everybody else is one-on-one. Jordan Addison goes off for $162. TJ Hockenson 114. Aaron Jones gets a 100-yard rushing game because you're in too high all day. Everything else fell apart for the Bears, but they stopped Justin Jefferson. But it's like totally not worth it, right? Mm-hmm. So you could do that. I think the teams that have had the most genuine success play them physical, which is why it was interesting that you said that. If you can be, I don't know what coverages the Cardinals use, but like 2-man, right? Or even just straight up like cover 2 kind of things, 2 high stuff where you can get somebody, impress on him, maul him at the line of scrimmage and be physical. By the way, this works great against Jordan Addison too, who's a smaller receiver. Yeah. Be physical, knock him off the routes and stuff. That can work. The problem is that's not a very dynamic coverage plan. It's a little samey and it's not very flexible. So the Vikings have a lot of beaters for that. And the Jaguars game, actually, they basically got those looks all game long. And this was a Sam Darnold meltdown game where he had a bunch of turnovers. So they didn't show up on the scoreboard, but they got to the red zone 7 times. They moved the ball with ease against that because they have enough beaters installed for this because they've seen this plan a lot for now. So if you're going to walk away with a 20-yard Justin Jefferson box score, you probably lost the game. The teams that have beaten the Vikings have played it straight up and said, yeah, Justin Jefferson's going to get 100 yards on us. And we're going to hope that we can find a way to win the game anyways and play more regular defense. I think that's honestly a better strategy, but physicality is really important. I think if you don't have a physical secondary, I genuinely don't think you can keep up. So that's a really important factor to this one. And you have to do so without getting a bunch of flags.
And the Cardinals have been fairly good. Well, they were great for the first 9 games. They were always bottom 3 in penalties or top 3 in fewest penalties, whatever you want to say it. They've been a very bend, don't break defense, to coin a cliche, even though I hate using cliches. Like, they don't give up big plays. They give up a massive big play to Justin Smith and Jigba on a screen pass last week that set up a touchdown. They don't give up big plays. So it'd be very interesting to see which side wins this battle. And if the Cardinals to quote, win this battle, that means keeping Justin Jefferson out of the end zone. Bend, don't break, give him 80 yards between the 20s and then shut it down. Now, I want to pivot to the defense before we get to keys to the victory, keys to the game, next segment. Talk to me about Dallas Turner, because when I was in the Cardinals must trade back from 4, that's a guy you're looking at with the edge rusher help that the Cardinals needed, and haven't heard from much from over in Arizona yet. And then talk to me about the secondary, as Brian Flores is an evil genius with the blitzing, and you need, if you blitz a lot, a strong secondary to be able to hold its own if the blitz doesn't get there. So talk to me a little bit about the defense.
Yeah, so secondary is quick. They've done a lot of zone, so they're not doing, I mean, they'll man up sometimes, but those performances are a lot more about working together as a team, pass-offs, all that stuff. I could talk about it for hours. Yeah. But for Euro guy, Byron Murphy, we're very happy with him, and actually he's in a contract here, and everyone's kind of nervous about him hitting free agency and saying, hey, are we going to extend this guy? That's like where the attitude is at. He had a 3-game stretch with a pick in every game, and he's been... Of all the problems in the secondary, which, you're in zone coverage with 5 guys, there's holes everywhere. I would say that Byron Murphy is definitely not one of the concerns. But on that back end, it all has to stem from, did you get to the quarterback on the blitz? Because Brian Flores is a crazy person and he's going to blitz all day. For Dallas Turner, he's buried behind Andrew Van Ginkel right now, who's having the year of his life. He's got 9 sacks. He's got 2 pick sixes. Like the dude's absolutely like making a DPOY case. You cannot bench this dude just to get your rookie in. But he basically is the succession plan for Van Ginkel, who is in his late 20s. He's only on a 2-year deal, and I think the idea is for Dallas Turner to kind of take on that role later. Turner has really grown a lot in coverage, especially, which all these linebackers, Grenard, Van Ginkel, Turner, have to be in coverage because we sim pressure so much. So that he's grown a lot in that sense. And otherwise he's a rookie and he gets very limited time behind Jonathan Grenard, who's a stud, and Andrew Van Ginkel, who's genuinely should be in the DPOY conversation. He's going absolutely gangbusters. The defense is tough. It's really, what do you do to what do you do against the blitz? What do you do to cover explosives? And honestly, I think that's both sides of the field are going to be who gets to generate the explosives? What side of the ball generates the explosives? And I'm counting turnovers and, big sacks and stuff as explosives as well. Like, what are the big moments that will turn this game will come down to kind of whose playmakers make plays. So we'll get into that next. This Locked On Vikings, Locked On Cardinals crossover is brought to you by Game Time, the best place to find last-minute tickets. I've had some great experiences with Game Time, getting tickets to Vikings games in unfamiliar cities where I don't know what I'm doing. It's a great way to get yourself all set up. With Game Time, you can get all-in pricing, which features the total upfront and no surprise fees at checkout. And I tried really hard to take advantage of their lowest price guarantee. If you find the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. I could not find a better price. What does that tell you? I also had a thing with Game Time where my tickets didn't come through, and they were able to help me out with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, get the whole thing straightened away. I had money right back with it before the event even ended. They had it completely solved and figured out for me. I was very impressed with that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right. Rubber meets the road. These two teams, I think both of these teams have playoff aspirations, right? And I think the NFC West is in such a strange spot that the Cardinals it feels like you're only sending one team and the rest of them are getting, are falling behind the Vikings, the Packers, the Commanders, and all these other kind of also rans in their division. So I feel like this is really, really key for how things are going to shake out in January. What is the one thing the Cardinals cannot afford to do?
One?
The most important, if they do this, it's over, the biggest.
They cannot repeat the offensive line performance from last week.
Okay.
I think that's it. It has been the calling card for this team, allowing Kyler Murray to go through his progressions, allowing Kyler Murray to be special. If Kyler Murray doesn't have the ability to be special because he doesn't have the time to do so, that's a game changer. I don't care about how well the defense plays. The Cardinals can't move the ball down the field. None of this is going to work. So the offensive line is wildly underrated. They've overproduced above expectation, and they just laid an egg last week. Can't happen. Can't happen again.
I think similar thing for the Vikings. It's penalties and turnovers, and that's been kind of the case for a couple years now. They've had the turnover bug. Aaron Jones never fumbles, got the fumble bug now that he's here, right? He's fumbled a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. He fumbled on the goal line twice this year, and he's getting frustrated with it, like you can tell. So it's obviously the Sam Darnold turnover thing. So it's turnovers, and they've also had a lot of pre-snap issues. I think that they adjusted how they do their sideline operation, and I think that actually helped. But they had a lot of, delay of games, false starts, play clock issues, illegal formations and illegal motions and stuff. Just like the operation was a little bit too complicated, and Sam Darnold needed a couple weeks to figure out how to run it. So it's those kind of sloppy things. I don't know. It feels to me like this game comes down to that who's going to outmuscle who in the secondary when the Vikings have the ball. And then it's just that explosiveness. There's going to be some 40-yard ridiculous play, some ridiculous swing that's going to be the thing that breaks this game. I think you're going to have them both ways. That's how every Vikings game has gone. But like that's where I feel this game is gonna like exist. But where do you think this thing comes down to?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the interesting history, I think, the Minnesota went up 21-0 at State Farm Stadium and ended up losing that game, ended up being down at halftime with the Greg Joseph missed kick, a walk-off.
Oh, the 2021 game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, the last few years, man.
It's just been
years off my life.
It's wild. Yeah, really. Yeah. No, so for the Cardinals, like one thing you mentioned about turnovers, like the Cardinals defense on paper is one of the least talented fronts in football. I mean, you've got guys like Kazir White and Mac Wilson, two subsequent season signings that have been fantastic in the middle of the field. They're going to run a lot of dime, but the thing is, the big thing that's really changed the landscape of this defense the last couple of weeks, the exotic blitz packages where you don't know who's coming. You know Budda Baker is going to live around the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. He's the new age version of Tyrann Mathieu, who does things better at times than Honey Badger does and has done. He's different.
Or how about Harrison Smith, huh? We got to start making him a household name. The Hall of Fame case is coming.
Cool. He's not a Cardinal, so I don't really talk about it much. But it's like, don't be surprised if Sam Darnold is on the ground with Mac Wilson and Budda Baker on top of him, or Max Melton and Garrett Williams, trying to rip the ball from him. The opportunistic nature of this defense is starting to become, but isn't quite terrifying yet. It's on the precipice. So they have the tendencies to be able to do that already. It's just a matter of filtering out the baby fat, as it were. Because the front is terrible. Like the interior defensive line isn't good. You may see rookie Darius Robinson, his first action, 27th overall pick out of Missouri on Sunday, which could add a boost. But the blitz pressure the Cardinals get very rarely is from the usual suspects that you'd see blitz pressure coming from. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the mad scientist Nick Rallis does on Sunday. But that's another big thing for me.
It's probably by design, right?
No, it has to be. No, yeah. It's
like, why would you send the guy everybody expects to come?
Well, no, you don't. If you have a good player there, you send the guy. But they've had to adapt and evolve and survive, and they figured out something pretty special there.
Yeah, and look, there's good players and then there's good blitzers too. Like sometimes you can be a specialist, especially from the secondary, like a safety with any pass rush chops or a safety that sucks in coverage. Yeah, send that guy. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this one. I'm excited for this matchup because I am very unfamiliar with the Cardinals. I'm a little more familiar now. Now I got at least the broad strokes we can get in a half an hour, but the NFC West is just fascinating to me too. And this is going to be possibly decisive, especially as common games come into play and everything is so tight. It looks like it's going to come down to tiebreakers and all of that. Do you have any other like senses for what this comes down to? If you want to do a score prediction, now would be the time.
Yeah, I don't really score prediction. It's like the thing for the Cardinals is it's no longer a barometer check that if it's a close game and you lose, there's no impact. That's what the early season was. This could legitimately be, if the Cardinals win this game, a first round playoff matchup. Because
absolutely, yes.
And that's the wildest part about this. If the Cardinals can run a string, win this week, beat Seattle next week, like we're looking at the Cardinals potentially getting that 2 seed, depending on what happens with Philly if they lose a couple of games. Because it's not if
they're 9-2, they won 7 straight. That they might not fall away.
they may not, but it has been not an if, it's been a when for Philly. And I know that's a far outlier. We've got a lot of football to play, and chances are that won't happen. But if the Cardinals win on Sunday, Luke, just like the NFL does, there's no reason why the Cardinals win this game. That's all the reason why the Cardinals win by a field goal and the rest of the NFL is off its head. It's just one of those. I don't think they'll win. I think it's going to be tight, and it's going to come down to penalties and turnovers, as you mentioned.
It always comes down to that stuff. So Vikings are 3.5-point favorites at home. That tells me, honestly, that like FanDuel thinks that these teams on a neutral field aren't that far apart. And I don't think that they're wrong about that. Yeah. This could have, Vikings very favored to be the 5 seed. So whoever wins that NFC West, maybe it's the NFC South winner, whoever that ends up being, probably Falcons. But whoever's a 4 seed, like if the Cardinals are in the playoffs, the 4 seed feels like the most likely place for them to be there. So yeah, you're right. This could absolutely be a playoff preview. Big stuff coming up in the NFC to all of our everydayers. Vikings everydayers, Cardinals everydayers. Please come check it out. All right. Come check each other out. All right. We're all friends here. Alex, thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
We'll see you all next time on the Locked On Podcast Network.